He's a founding president of Global Unites, which is a global youth movement for peace, and the founder of Sri Lanka Unites, which is Sri Lanka's largest youth movement for peace. He's a visiting lecturer in conflict transformation and international relations and was named one of the 50 leading lights in Asia Pacific, sponsored by Oxford University and the Financial Times. Rhuani, a former member of GGY, as I mentioned before, is known for her powerful artwork and posters that became synonymous with our movement, capturing the spirit of the people's movement from meaningful chants. She was also an independent presidential candidate in 2015, which I think is not correct. Almost. Okay, all right. This was in 2019.
19, yeah.
All right. Prashan, can I put this to you and Rhuani and ask you all to tell us a little bit more about yourselves, your movement, and why you are doing what you're doing, and what you're trying to change in Sri Lanka.
After you.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it, and I've always been inspired by what you all have done as a community to hold our leaders accountable, and I know that history will speak fondly of these efforts behind the scenes for transforming Sri Lanka. So currently I am the General Secretary of the National Development Front. We started off as a centenary movement, as a political movement, looking at our generation when we retire someday, what are we going to leave behind for our children? And it's not going to happen overnight. We need to plan for 20, 25 years. As we said, 100 years of independence, where would we be as a nation? What we'll be handing over? And then we also knew just a political movement wasn't good enough. We needed a political academy. That was the Centenary Academy. So far we've graduated over 170 future politicians who will be running for office across the country. Some are running right now. It's a one-year course on the theory and practice of political leadership. And then after that academy, we realized we needed our own political party, because many of them didn't want to run with the established parties. They said, we came here because we believed in these values, where can we run? Most of these other parties, either you have to be the son or the daughter of the politician, or you have to be extremely financially affluent that you could buy your way in. I'm not saying that's the only way to get in, but more often than not, there is some sort of a connection that you need. So we felt, what if we can make a platform? And so we finally, we joined the National Development Front. We were members in the party for about 2 years. It was an aging party, but they had the same values we had. They had started about 25 years ago. We stayed in the party, and they realized the new generation was trustworthy, and they voted us in as the leaders of the party pretty much. And so this is our first actual election where we're running for office, so this is new to us. We're already giving it everything we have as a smaller party, and it's exciting, at times overwhelming, but so honored to have people like Rhuani and others contesting with us. Even though the odds are stacked against us, we could be in civil society or we could be in the media and criticize regimes and politicians all you want. But what we figure out is once you get into the arena and you challenge them in their own arena, then you have more of an opportunity to shift political culture. And that's what we're doing right now.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I think living by example, my thing is, I'm not a politician, but I have felt such passion for my country over the years, from my childhood actually. I used to dream when we were in school, when the teachers didn't teach properly or I switched off, I was bored, I would dream, how would I change my country? And for years I would, constantly dream. And then a couple of years ago, I actually engaged in working in villages that really, I saw the suffering, and it really got to me, and I thought, I need to do something. And as a civilian, I was able to do a little bit. And I thought, I'm doing what the government should be doing. So I might as well get into government, I can do more things. Because especially in Gampaha district, in a particular place, many times I visited because they were getting waterlogged. I went so many times to help them. And the politicians in that area, they chased us. And it was really frustrating because we could do something, because we've done in other villages, right? But they wouldn't let us. So I thought, I need to do something more. And sometimes you have to get into that place in order to bring the change. So this is why I don't want to ever be named as a politician, but I want to be a reformer and someone who can transform the country. And I really believe it won't take much to transform the country if we have uncorrupt people in Parliament. Just looking at what has gone on, oh my gosh, we can just change this country easily if you have the right people in Parliament. So,
may I ask you, or what you just said, why I'm assuming at that time you were not in contesting or hadn't decided to contest. Why would a politician chase someone who's doing social service from a village?
In fact, even yesterday, we were walking the streets and they were telling me, Madam, you can't do anything here because these guys are, this party, they don't allow anyone to come. And, you can't because these are their constituents. So, what they were saying is, so the system, what we were told yesterday, and even in the past, was there is a group of guys in so you go into a village, the first people you meet, they are positioned in a way where the political party has their guys.
Okay.
So when you try to go in, unless it's really difficult to break in because they won't let you go beyond a certain point. And so yesterday, one of the guys I met on the street, he said, can you come? I will create a meeting for you this week. I said, no, I'm not going to come. I will come after the election and I will help you. If you can get me through this thing. I said, I don't want to be like every other politician who comes just before an election and promises the earth and the moon and they never come back again. But I will prove to you that if I give you my word, we will do something. And in fact, one of our policies is to help flooding in that area. So, we can do this. But again, it's the corruption
that's holding everything back.
Yeah.
I think as a group, we are all in appreciation and awe of what you all are doing. Because, I mean, while what we are doing is also challenging, you all have taken the next step. I mean, so many have asked us, you all are on the street wanting change. Now you all must think of getting into office and things like that. But none of us
are braving. I mean,
none of us.
We all want to see the new faces in Parliament, but
we want change.
We can only do so much. None of us
yeah.
want to get into politics ourselves.
Yeah, we want change. We want new parties.
Yeah.
We want qualified people. But then we are not willing to take that step. So we truly appreciate what you all are doing. That's why I think last week also we had Nuan Bopage and Swastika and Veere from that party also. So that's also a big step they've taken. And we appreciate it. Because the easiest step would be to go and join an already established party. So,
but then that comes with all the baggage.
All that baggage you have to be.
When you're brought up in a particular way, you just cannot. I mean, I'm really appreciative that Prashan invited me because I have been in this for a little bit and it's just really dirty. And you feel contaminated. You can't. It's your values are compromised. Everything is compromised. So when he said, and in fact, Prashan, I won't tell you, yesterday we were walking the streets and I was talking to all the people, and then suddenly we walked down this lane, and one of the three-wheeler guys who was talking to us before, he came looking for us with a bag of drinks, and I was really surprised. He said, Madam, Mama Genawa me drinks. So I said, oh my gosh, why do you do that? Then he said, can I talk to you privately? And he knows you, he used to work for you. He was a driver of yours, Shivankar. And then he gave me glowing reports. He said, I didn't want to say it in front of everyone, that's why, laid low. But it was refreshing to hear what people in that place, say about Prashan. And so it's really, I was so proud of you.
Wonderful. Going back to this National Development Front and Centenary Front, what was the reason to run under the different party name? Was it because it was a registered party, or what was the reason?
No, it's not too hard to change the party. We could have called it United Centenary Front.
Right.
But when we're doing our polling with the average person, the whole vision of a centenary movement,
means
see
nothing.
us, it's a little too above the average voter.
Right.
And also then we assume that we are bringing about development in 2048, which our former president hijacked from us and tried to make it his, when we were thinking our age of retirement at 65, that will be 100 years, and that was obviously. So that was one, so we thought, but development is the key. Like, my parents, when they went to school, they learned about Sri Lanka as a developing nation. I learned about Sri Lanka as a developing nation, and now my son is learning about Sri Lanka as a developing nation. So regardless of what these parties say, all the three main parties have been around for at least 45 years or 76 years. They have not even got us close to development. In fact, we're bankrupt right now, so we're not even moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And so for us, that concept of we are the National Development Front. So we believe in that. And yes, the vision is the centenary. That still holds. That's the political movement. But the vehicle is this, because it seems to make better sense to the average voter.
Okay. I think you sort of answered this question. You tried to run for president in 2019. Then you supported Nagananda Kodithurakku at one point, I think. What made you?
So again, it's kind of inside of me. My family, we're not political, but then most of my life, I've seen, my uncles have been chief justices, they've been generals in the army, they have been key figures. So I come from a family that's been passionate about the nation. And my father used to constantly use this phrase, there's nothing worse than when evil triumphs and when good men do nothing. It used to irritate me. Every day we would hear this statement.
I love that.
Edmund Burke. British politician, right? So suddenly, like just before, I think it was 2016, this phrase of my father's kept coming to my mind. And I didn't know, I could remember this good men doing nothing. So I had to Google and figure out, and then I saw this, and it really impacted me because we were brought up on this statement of my father's. And then a friend of mine said, you're so passionate about the country, why don't you, Mr. Kodithurakku would like to meet you. So I went, I met him, I liked him, I think he's a nice man, good man, he's an honest man, I know because I've worked with him.
And he has good intentions.
Very good intentions, and he loves the country. And so, I had the opportunity of running with him in 2020. But because of, again, that word, corruption, nothing ever came out of it. And so we kind of, moved away and so I was telling Prashan, till death do us part.
Prashan, when you've been at our round table before, and at that time you told us that you would run in all the districts, but you all have selected 5 districts for this election.
Yeah.
Could you tell us why?
Yeah, so there were a few reasons. One, we looked at our whole electoral map, and we had the people who said, we want to run, we would go for it. And then you looked at that the parties are spending like $1 billion rupees on a presidential election. And in order for us to compete at that level in 22 districts, when we looked at our budget, we realized this is something we're going to have to raise much more. We can step on the gas and try and raise that money, but is this the right time to step on the pedal right now? Because whatever said and done, we were pitching the same ball as the NPP was, but NPP had a larger stage to say that on, of we are the change. Even though they've been around for 45 years, even though they've been part of 2 governments and so on, and their leader has been in parliament for 25 years, most of them have been in parliament for at least 15 to 25 years, they managed to build a narrative that they are the anti-establishment party. And so when people were frustrated and they wanted change, this was the easy option that was there.
Yes.
So once that space is occupied for now, will it be smart for us to spend the little resources we have to try and hit all across the country, or should be the
to spread yourself that thin?
Exactly. And then also we felt, because you don't want to burn out some of these younger ones, because some of them may feel like, I'm going to go in and it's going to be great. Well, this is the long haul. We have to prepare them. So prepare them where they actually have a shot. And we felt the provincial councils and the smaller houses are better elections for them to come in. And also once the honeymoon period is over and people are willing to be a little bit more objective about the situation. Right now there are a lot of people who don't even consider another party saying we want to be the alternative. They've fallen in love and it's too early for them to even start thinking rationally about some alarms that they may have. So if we looked at all of that and said, no, let's take a step back, and we've picked these 4 districts because we feel we can build good momentum there. And but yeah, some of our districts were not happy about it. They were like, no, we also want to run, we want this thing, but we said, no, we're going to make a decision. So that was the leadership had to make a call there, and I felt we took the right call.
And I think Sri Lanka is in a better position than, say, the US, where they have this two-party system. Now at least we have more political parties to choose from. I mean, maybe it's still a tough run. I mean, the NPP has broken in now, but for the longest time it has been SLFP, UNP, then SLPP hijacked the SLFP, destroyed that and took over UNP, that broke up into SJB. So, but now with NPP, you guys, Swastika's party, at least there are some options. And you can, I mean, even if, I mean, obviously you're not going to form a government, but you can support good bills and you can put forward bills if you can get into parliament. So I think from a citizen of this country, for us it's comforting that there are decent people running. Because thus far that there has been so few. I mean, if you look at the makeup of the previous government, you could count on your fingers how many decent people there were in parliament. So,
and it's important, I think, to read, even though we're not astute political students yet about how things work, but look at the reality and say, what's the pulse on the ground? What are people saying? Because after the Aragale, it opened. The Aragale paved the way for a new political culture, not any political party.
100%.
Somebody will try to, we should never let anybody hijack that.
Correct.
Right? Aragale paved the way for a new political culture that got rid of all these guys. Some political parties benefited more from the Aragale than others through whatever they did. But now people are saying, well, since this is the one that's going to hopefully pave the way, let's try and give that the support. So it's not wholehearted commitment to the values, the ideology, or the team. It's more, let this run its course. This purifying process has to take place. Now, that's fine. Now, so some people said, then why don't you just go and ask for nominations with the MPP? And for us, ideologically, and a lot of this, there's a lot of holes in the arguments and the way, the strategy and so on. And yes, that's opportunistic politics. You can just lean on that for your gain, but this is not about a personal agenda. We want to make sure that there's true transformation. And so for that we have to build. So I really respect Swastika and Gonbopage and their team. They are a little bit more far left of centre. We are more centre-right as a party, maybe more centrist. But we do agree on a lot of those things outside economic policies. But we need to pave the way. It doesn't have to be this. And I think more and more Generation Z and millennials, and hopefully even the alpha generations, they're not blindly loyal to political parties. They want results. They hate hypocrisy. They want to see action. And they're not as patient, which is a good thing, that they would demand results. And so I feel the new era is coming, where it will be not just two parties, many people. It might be by the merit of the person as opposed to the color
I
of
think
the
that's,
party.
and also I think the one thing that came out of the Aragale is people are not just willing to sit back and be apathetic. People are more politically engaged and more knowledgeable, I think, about what is going on, and they actually want to find out more. If something comes, people do a little more research and they are more aware of what is going on.
This generation is like that, like Prashan is saying. It's the younger generation, not my generation. They are like, whatever.
Complacent.
Yeah.
As long as
so we will say what to do. That's
also,
our
I think
attitude.
there's this thing, like once you elect somebody, once a party is elected, even if you're not happy, you have to let them run their course, their 5 years or 5.5 or 6 years. If you're unhappy, you make the change then. Until then, you tolerate. So I think after the Aragale, the people struggle. People have realized that no. I mean, if these guys are doing something wrong, we need to speak out about it.
Yeah,
we're not going to wait for the end of the period and then
Your vote, the voice your voice should not fade after the elections.
Yes.
Your voice has to continue. Yeah. That's really important.
Need to hold them accountable.
Yeah, because people sit back and say, okay, let's see what they do. But I think for me personally, I think the entire nation should be engaged in governance. It's not just the people in power. You have to, voice your opinion, and like what GGY has been doing. I mean, it's amazing the impact GGY has had even in Parliament, right? So,
I mean, the fact that we are insulted and called NGO carcass and all means that somebody is actually watching us, right? So moving on to one of our next questions. Our recollection is you all had pledged 6% of GDP towards education. At the moment, it's severely underfunded. One of the lowest budgets in, I think, the entire
in the world
for education is in Sri Lanka. So how will you achieve, if you came into power, how would you get to that 6%? Would you pull funds out of it, like say defense or something, which is seriously way too much funding going into defense? We are for a country that's not at war. That could be one place, but what is your plan? How long do you think it would need to bring it up to 6%?
Yeah, well, so since becoming bankrupt as a nation, the equation has become more complicated.
Yeah.
And there is actually a limit as to how much we can allocate towards education. That's the excuse that most governments would give, and realistically there are challenges. But also, when you speak to the education ministry, even the money that they allocated is not fully spent. It's not fully utilized because of the bureaucracy and the inefficiencies and all of that, and maybe the corruption within the ministry as well. But yes, so how do we get there? It's not going to be overnight to 6%, because definitely right now it's one of the lowest in the whole world, definitely one of the lowest in the region, and that's going to have long-term ramifications for the country. So when we look at defense, we're spending 950 billion rupees a year on defense. Sorry, 550 billion rupees a year on defense, and only 220 billion on education.
I think the health and education are almost
included, is almost similar to what we spent.
Similar to what is allocated to defense.
Health is around nearly 320 billion. So the reality is, you can be, after 15 years after the Civil War, we don't need to be spending at this level. And it may be unpopular in certain fronts to say this, but no, military spending, we need to reevaluate it. And also, there's so much government wastage that's taking place. You have 1.5 million people working in the government sector. When most assessments are, Sri Lanka can function with an 800,000 strong workforce. And then there's going to be transition. And then maybe actually some of the government workers to increase more for education. Many schools are extremely, they're struggling because they don't have enough English teachers, they don't have enough Tamil teachers, they don't have, so basic stuff. And then there are about, 400 schools that don't have running water in 2024. And then so many children fainting in assemblies across the country. That number has increased since 2022. For me, that means they're not even eating dinner, leave alone breakfast, and they're coming there and they're fainting in this country. And I'm not talking about rural districts alone. I'm talking about Gamba. This is happening every week, every day. And so we can do better. We have to do better. And so it's not impossible. There's a will. We definitely can make a way. And you cut spending on military. You reduce the wastage that's taking place. And yes, it's not going to be overnight, immediately one budget, but you work towards it. You show that. And I think that we'll see. And then also looking to the ways of how spending is done right now. Why is there inefficiencies? Why aren't they even spending the money they have? Where is there are bottlenecks in the system? Is there corruption in the system? We have to look into those.
I mean, I think one of the biggest issues with the public sector, and I mean, I believe, and my figures may not be quite right, but I think when the time that Mahinda came into power, it was something like 600,000 people in public sector, but they stuffed it with people. You can't just tell them to go home, but how could you deal with something like that? What would you do with those people? Is there an answer to that?
Yeah, I heard some of them are just coming to work and sitting under a tree.
Yeah. Because there is no work, and also even to reallocate people. Now, for example, Dushi is in teaching, she's the university lecturer, and they are severely understaffed.
Yes.
But then you have certain departments overstuffed with people who you can't move them because they don't have the capability and education to do it. So, I mean,
if I may just jump in here, this is something that I think most of the major players in the political scene have said that we have a hugely inflated public sector, and that's very true. But how can we reduce it? No one, as far as I know, has come up with an answer to a solution or an answer how to cut this down. Everybody says it's a problem. Yeah. So do you have anything to offer?
Yes, we do. We've been thinking about this quite a bit. First of all, you have to understand that one of the problems is political appointments made by parties that came into power and they use government jobs as an incentive. They have no right doing that. They did it. Mahinda Rajapaksa and regime were chiefly responsible for it. It's not that others didn't do it. That's just political practice. So it's very easy. The whole government sector hasn't gone through a performance evaluation or a systems audit for nearly 3 decades. So there is bound to be cancers in the system. There's bound to be inefficiencies in the system. So that's the first thing to do. Audit the structure, and when auditing it, one of the first things to come out for me is political appointments. If there are people who are not qualified for a job, and they have been occupying that space for, let's say, 5 years, and being paid when they don't deserve to be paid, because they took the job away from somebody else who's qualified for it, technically, you've been stealing from the regime. And most of these guys have faked their CVs, or because the politician has said, just create this and bring it in, I'll sign it, and you're in. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2, these are thousands. And so you have to, this is a criminal act. You have created false documents, you've come in, you've taken a position, you've taken it with other people, and because you're incompetent, the whole system has struggled because of you. So you've committed multiple felonies almost in this situation. So that's first step, is who are the political appointees, what have they done?
But also the people who appointed them should be held accountable, right?
So the whole system has to be evaluated on that, right? But at the same time, secondly, we have to look at, if you do a proper audit of the system, you would realize where the inefficiencies are. So let's say somebody's qualified for the job, but they don't know what's going to kick them out. So they've been, being inefficient or being corrupt. So you can, if you clearly have a system of evaluating who are the ones who are taking bribes, who are the ones who are making the system mistake, and just on that alone, if you have systems in place to, you're guilty of doing this, you have harassed this many people, these are the accusations that have been brought against you, and then that's cause enough for them to be taken out of this position. I'm talking just by doing those two alone, you're talking maybe 200,000-300,000 people maybe on the chopping block there. But still, a humane way of going about it, because overnight you can't have, 100,000 or a million even leave the job. So it's like, many countries have seen that then they're transitioning out. Unfortunately, we've let this go on for a long time, so now it's a bigger problem. Is that you start creating new industries, new opportunities, and provide the vocational and the training, the transition and training, and say, here's 6 months pay. We're providing this training plus 6 months pay for you to transition out. You are a liability to the system in this form, but you're going to be an asset to the nation in this form. And this is where we're letting you go. It's almost like after a war, countries mobilize their military back into the workforce in a meaningful way. And
but also, I think the labour laws also would make that difficult to do, isn't it?
So there needs to be a reform on that. You can't just say this is all difficult, so let's keep on paying 1.5 million people, right?
But it's a long process.
I feel it doesn't have to be, because the first 2 steps can be made immediately because they are in violation of the law. They have duplicated their qualifications or whatever. But then there's also this incentives of saying the government will provide you capital that you would need for you to become an entrepreneur, for you to start a business of your choice, for you to start, being the master of your own destiny. And if you have the skill sets, we'll provide you the training. And this is almost 1 year's pay, but now that's capital for you to go, and the government is no longer responsible for your position. We want you to make it. A lot of these people might thrive if they have the capital. That's 12 months pay, that's fine. You give them the capital, before that you provide them the training, have systems of accountability to make sure that they are responsible with it, and then let them go. So everyone is saying it's difficult, and I'm not saying this is like quick, easy fixes, but you have to deal with this. We can't keep on spending this level. Sri Lanka has had 76 budgets, out of which 72 have been deficits. We are living beyond our means as a nation. And what we're doing is we're making our children and our grandchildren pay the debt for our ineffective, irresponsible lifestyles. That has to stop now. That requires leadership. But opportunist politicians will continue to give out freebies and welfare, whatever, to keep people happy and not fix the country's problems. And that's where you need political leadership.
Okay.
You have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I was just going to say that doing an audit is I think that's a good idea. But getting rid of the people who are inefficient in the system is not so easy for what Nisha said, which is the labour laws. Because what you have is, if you have people who have committed some kind of offence or some crime, then you can have an inquiry and say, okay, out. But there are a lot of people who are just sitting there. They haven't really transgressed in any way. They haven't committed any crime, but they are just not working. So that's the inefficiency, and that's a large number of people. With people like that, there's really nothing that you can use, given our labour laws, in the public sector, not the private sector, public sector, to get them out.
Even private sector
okay.
can't.
Yeah, because what will happen is then they'll sue you. And most of the time they win. And so employers don't want to go through that hassle of a long drawn out court case, and then they know that the final outcome is probably they'll have to pay compensation and they'll still be stuck with the person. So maybe there needs to be a revisiting of the labour laws first. I don't know how difficult or easy that is, but I think that needs to be done.
But what if you put them through an examination process? Are you qualified to do this job? Let's do an exam. I mean, you have appraisers in companies.
Correct. But then if they fail the exam, what do you do?
Then you say, sorry, you don't.
But that's why it goes back to the law, no?
But then it's not legal. Having an exam like that is not legal.
After
they've been employed.
Hired, then you can't say something because they'll argue and say, well, you took us in because we had the qualifications and the eligibility. That's the argument.
But you're definitely cutting off quite a bit for those who have committed crimes or those who have been fulfilling positions that they're in.
Sure, some offense.
You cut the fat off, right?
Right.
But then you come to this position. For me, it's like definitely yes, we have to reform labour laws immediately. In fact, even investments globally are stunted in Sri Lanka for many reasons. One of it is some of our labour laws. Like international, it's not, we don't want our labourers to be abused, but at the same time we don't want to create a structure that no one wants to invest in this country because of draconian laws that just don't work. And so at that point, that is a key thing that government leadership needs to take place. And then you reissue the contracts of saying, here is a new era. We're going to start things like new government, new efficiencies. This is how it's going to be. Yes, there will be protests and strikes. Maybe we'll have less of it depending on who's in government. But, we have to work.
Make a start.
And that's it.
But no one has really said that, no, about the labour laws. Has anyone actually come out and said, this is something we need to reform?
No.
I've heard from the private sector quite a bit.
No, I mean, so you're talking about political parties, right? No, I haven't heard.
But is it not the same labour law that is treated for both public and private sector? Is it different?
No, it's the same.
Probably.
It's the same law.
It's the same, yeah.
So why wouldn't politicians say it? Okay, now
Unpopular.
1.5 million workers into 4 in a family, around 5 million people. You don't want to mess with it, so no one wants to talk about it. And some regimes, the entire base is that government force. So now you don't want to touch that either. Even the people there know there is inefficiencies, but they think they're going to come, they will take care of us, keep pampering us, give us more money, and then it's going to be great. That's where the system's flawed. So when will there be politicians who have the ability to speak out and say, no, we can't do this.
Right.
But you can have a better life. Why are you stuck? We went to a village. I think each village has about 14 government employees. Each village in this country has 14. And you go to a village and you ask them, who are these people? I do that all the time. Do you know the 14 employees from the government in your village? Everybody knows the Gram Sevak and the midwife. The other 12 are unknown to these people. There's somebody for youth affairs, there's somebody for entrepreneurship, there's somebody for... And in some villages, we found the guy who was supposed to be helping entrepreneurial affairs, because we do a lot of entrepreneurial work, he has a shop on the side. He gets a 50,000 rupee salary, he's running a shop. He just goes outside and says, how many people? That was his political payback. Thank you for your support of the campaign. So this is a significant, this is corruption at its highest, and not just political, but government.
I don't know about the reduction of the government service, but we certainly had a presidential candidate who 3 days or 2 days before the postal vote announced a salary increase. Just before this time's election.
I mean, really, that would have been on purpose apart from garnering votes, knowing he was not going to win, and to put the next person in the down the creek without a paddle.
I saw, talking of this government service, since we mentioned it, I saw this stat by Verite Research, where we talk about we spoke about the budget allocated for defence, 534 billion, I think. This stat said that of the entire salary bill, more than 52% goes towards defense and police, public security. So it's a balance 48% that goes for the health service, education, judiciary. I mean everything else basically. So there's a significant. I mean more than 50% of the government salary budget is going towards. So how we allowed. I mean we also we have also been allowing.
We were apathetic.
Watching this happen. So this has happened on the guise of Rata Jatiya Agama, and we've been allowing it to happen. So and everybody's we've met other political party leaders, and they've all they say this is a sensitive topic. We don't want to talk about it, but.
But when you say we allowed it to happen, there wasn't a whole lot we could do about it because Parliament was set up in such a way that they just kept doing these allocations, and also there was a lack of transparency. I mean, a lot of these figures are coming out now. I don't know whether it's my ignorance, but I'm realizing a lot of what has been happening over the last 10 or 15 years now. Yeah. Because these numbers are coming out. But before that, we didn't really know the exact numbers. Yeah, I feel there was a lack of transparency.
I don't know. They have this annual budget, and in between they're passing things.
Exactly.
More funds.
Exactly.
I think partially it's just that there are quite a few organizations that are doing amazing work to break down the budgets, make it more accessible to the average citizen so that they understand what's happening. But even civil society organizations that were watching this and knew this didn't really have the skill set to amplify it and let the people know what was going on. Now everybody's ready. Every budget comes in, you know exactly what's going on. But this was going on for a long time. And there were so many good people in government who knew this was wrong, but just continued against that. And then we can't be going against the grain here. Maybe we are going to... Even now, there are people who get offended when you say we need to cut military spending. As if, you're for terrorism by cutting military spending. No, you're saying that we need more on education. It's just reallocation. Why is this not possible? So I feel all that narrative, there's this emotional narrative seems to blind our people. There's still a very emotional voter base and very emotional public. So if you build a nice emotional narrative, we almost take our brains out and keep it on the side and just run with the emotion. And every election, that's what happens. These waves are emotional reactions. We take one simplistic narrative in this situation of so many other truths, we make those numb and say, this is the only truth, because this resonates emotionally to me, and I'm going to ride this wave. But when one truth is made more absolute than everything else, what happens is, now you're creating a tsunami of other problems that's going to come through. So when can you have a comprehensive, holistic view of what's happening? And without being swayed by very expensive marketing campaigns and emotional campaigns that have looked to, puppeteer you. That's what's happening. Billions spent. About 500 million to 1 billion, and then some of these campaigns were 3 years long, 2 years long. About 3 to 4 billion spent to fix your psyche, to make you think a certain way, and that's only one narrative we thought. And now I think the rest of the situation.
And also I think the mass media is also fairly biased. It's not giving a balanced view of what is happening. I think the emergence of emerging social media is what has helped disseminate information of what is actually happening and giving other political parties outside of the ruling parties a voice. I think a lot of it is transmitted through social media, isn't it?
Yeah, but even
you look at the newspapers, the TV stations. Who wants them?
That's the point. We don't have an independent media anymore. We may have at some point, but not anymore. Because all the big media houses are owned by somebody who's partisan.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the problem. So, but the narrative that we get is not an independent narrative. It's biased.
Yeah.
And so even the state media, for the longest time, and we've got desensitized to this, state media has always been the weapon of the incumbent. And that should not be the case. It's not the case in many countries. It's very clearly there is an independence there. So people can look to that media to get information. Right now that's not happening. And like you said, all the major Mudalalis are running the media stations, or major political affiliations are running the stations. And even social media, now with ad spend, and you can build the narrative to be the most powerful narrative by bots and spending, sponsored ads. And so even that's being manipulated. So we have an issue of identifying what's true.
That is true.
And
Yes.
what's
Fake,
louder.
fake
Yes,
news.
absolutely.
The media, how much of I mean obviously the incumbent gets a lot of media coverage. Parties such as yourselves, what is the media coverage you get?
How do you get your message across?
No, do you get any media coverage from the say the?
So jokingly we say the best way to get media coverage is to go get arrested. Right? If you do something wrong, you get a better chance of getting media, or than doing the right thing. You could do initiatives that are meaningful, impacting so many people. Doesn't get, because even for media, it's about viewership, and viewership sensationalism. And so every time it's like, how do you get that? And then also these bigger parties, if they have some sort of ownership or involvement in it, they get the coverage. And they're not going to give it. So we've got very little coverage. We have to fight for it. Ask, beg, give us a chance. Put us on a debate. Give us an ability to share. It's very minimum compared to the rest.
Just I want to ask them. Three main the three main newspapers, the Daily News, the Times, the Times, and the
Vijay
newspapers, and the Island.
And also Navderana, no?
Yes, but the main ones, let's see, over the past year, how many articles about your party and your movement would they have published?
In 3 years, maybe one or two. And so that's why we jokingly say we maybe have to do something wrong to get some attention here. But the thing is, luckily, we are not only dependent on that. So we do have our own ways of doing it, but it's extremely unfair right now. Like there are amazing candidates from other parties. There are amazing candidates, even who are juniors in larger parties, that don't get the attention. You have to. And so these media stations are also responsible for the kind of democracy we have. They have gone to where the money goes. Even now, just this past 2 weeks, I've been getting calls from 2 state television stations, every private station, asking us to spend ad money. Do you want to put an ad? I said, oh, you're sure? How much? Like literally 6 lakhs for 30 seconds during prime time. If you have that kind of money lying around for a 30-second ad, we'll be running a different campaign. But and they assume, if you want to, we'll give you. I said, will we get a spot on a debate? Will we get a spot for an interview? No, that you have to pay more. In a sense, you have to buy the package. There's a package you have to buy. And so it's open stuff. And so it's not built for true democracy.
The odds are truly against.
In fact, this morning, one of my canvas suppliers, he came and he said, I want to help you because he's from that area. So I gave him a whole bunch of leaflets. And he was saying, Madam, itana karanda, like they have a provincial hall where people can hire and do little meetings. And he was saying, no one but the government is allowed to book the hall. He said for the whole of this month, they have booked.
So that is NPP?
NPP. So he said, Madam, me venasak naha, metana pena asadharane. So he said, even for you to come and do a meeting there, you won't be able to book that hall. It is meant for the public, but the political parties have hijacked it for their own use. So, and he was saying, don't think this is, a good period. You're going to see the real, what is actually going to happen. So.
Okay. Correction, 30-second ad on the state television is 275,000. 1 minute would be 6 lakhs.
Okay. Right. So, a follow-up question to that. We know how prohibitive the cost is to run a campaign. How have you guys managed? What is your source of funding? Is it open? Is there transparency? How do you all function?
Yeah. So as a party and a political movement for the last 4 years, if you go on our website, we've been trying to share, here's how we received money and here's how we spent it. Now, technically, as a campaign, you have 39 days to go and give the Election Commission your finances for the campaign. We are looking to do it at the end of the campaign. We're going to put it out on our website. Here's the money we raised, here's how we spent it. Not just financial, some of it's in kind. Like for example, we've had some print companies say, we'll print your flyers, or 50% of your flyers, we'll do it. So that's an in-kind donation. We've had some people say, all right, we'll give you an interview It's normally this much, but it's on the house, we can use. So there have been things like that.
Right.
But it's mainly been Sri Lankans, normal citizens, who are saying here's 50,000, here's 10,000, here's whatever. And then also we've established, we knew you can't be in this seriously without raising some significant funding. We established chapters among the Sri Lankan community who believed in what we are about. Overseas. So we have our chapters in New York, New Jersey, LA, London, Toronto. And we've been telling them who we are, what we're doing for the last 2 years, 3 years. And so some of them have, as chapters, raised money and sent it over. And that's helped us with our campaign as well. But we're spending nothing compared to what major parties will be spending or have spent.
Right. Last two questions, and then we can wrap up. General feeling, I think, there are negatives and positives, but generally people, personally, I feel hope for the first time that we have a different president and people who are actually looking at corruption and stuff, stuff that is important to us and good governance. And as I say, it's a general feeling. People think what they have. The AKD and the NPP caretaker or interim government have been doing a decent job in this short period, considering it's only 3 ministers trying to run the country. What are your views? How do you feel do you think they're doing a good job? What are the pros and cons?
I'll let you go for that.
Yeah, so I personally think they're doing a good job, but it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
New brooms sweep well. It's watch and wait and see, because also what we are seeing, I've been wondering whether it's actually election gimmicks, trying to bring all these people into prison and whatever, or is it actually, are they really going to go after these corrupt officials and really clean up government? If that's the case, wow, I would love to support them. And that's our stance. If they're doing a good job for the people, for the nation, we will be the first to support them.
Excellent.
I echo that, because what people realize is the usual political reality in Sri Lanka is if one group is doing well, the opposition will try to attack them, because points shouldn't go the other way. It should be on your side. If we are elected to parliament, our goal is not to play politics as usual. When they do something good, support them better than their own comrades. But when they are going against what they said, we need to attack very hard, because you can't allow, because people say all these things happen in this country. For me, that's one of my biggest criticisms against most of the established parties, the president included. He's been in parliament for 25 years. That's 8,000 days of full-time political service. Our former opposition leader has also been in parliament for 25 years, 8,000 days. While on their watch being paid by the people to be in opposition to government, to balance power, the country's gone bankrupt. We have East under bombings, we've had civil war and human rights violations, we've had journalists gone missing, all of that. It's on them as well while they were paid. You can't say I couldn't do anything, I was in the opposition. What did you do to stop it? If not for the people creating an aragale to change it, none of them could even inspire the people to get on the streets and do something significantly. Correct. It's the people who did it. So they failed throughout, and then they benefited from a wave, and now better deliver. Yes. And so my personal principle is any government that comes into power, even though it is a minority, 42%, they still have a mandate. And so you need to at least give them 3 months to get their footing.
Yes.
Now they will drop the ball because they decided to go with just 3 cabinet ministers.
But that is only for that interim period.
You will drop the ball.
Yeah.
Now, some would say, no, you're responsible for dropping the ball because you decided 3. And you said everybody else is so corrupt, and it sticks nice with the narrative. There was no one in parliament to create a 20%, 25%, so you decided to take 3. They will drop the ball on that. Yes, you can criticize on that, but personally, I'm going to stay where I'm criticizing. I'm giving 3 months. But after that, you made some major promises, and you said that you were purer than the purest thing seen on earth, and you better deliver. And if you don't, we're coming after you. As the people or as elected officials or whoever, you will be held accountable. And you also need to know that they're on a shorter leash now. So they better not become cocky. They're on a shorter leash than the Rajapakshas were, because they said they were so much more than everybody else. And they said they'll do this. They said, oh, deficit is nothing. That's nothing. If you're a president, why would you take loans and print money? You don't need to do those things. They made those narratives and made it look so real that some people believed it like a sacred religion. So now it's going to come back. So we hope and pray that you can deliver. But if you're going to hoodwink the people, there are consequences coming.
Yeah. And it's actually comforting for us to hear people like you guys, and we had Harsha also on 2 weeks ago. If the government, rather than sabotaging, if the government has good policies, good bills coming, that you will support the good ones. Because basically the government can't be, if the government fails, the country fails. We need this government to do good and to succeed. So it's comforting for us also to know that, the different smaller parties also would support something that's beneficial to the country.
We are here because we want to build the country, not destroy.
Exactly.
So if somebody is doing a good job, absolutely you must support them.
That's why it's comforting, because all this time the political culture has been different. If I'm not in power, then I will sabotage somebody whatever they're doing. So coming on to our final question, can you tell our listeners why they should vote for the NDF in the general election? That's your...
Yeah, so NDF, the National Development Front, because there is another NDF which is a gas cylinder. So please don't vote for the gas cylinder. That will blow up in your face all over again.
I think
It's a family. Okay.
I can, whatever our political leanings may be, we are everybody agrees.
So recently we saw that, like, oh no, they're NDF too. But so we are the Development Front.
Prashan, bad choice. You should have stuck to UCL.
And the reason is, for the longest time we have been thinking on party lines. You have your allegiance to a party. You don't care who the MP is going to be. It's your party, so you blindly vote for anybody. So what happens is, so the wave has come, and now all sorts of garbage comes in with the wave. Gota's wave brought some of the worst garbage we've ever seen. Now be careful, don't let this wave bring a whole bunch of nobodies that you don't know of just because you're trying to be loyal to a party and you feel you owe it. You don't owe anything to anybody. Vote for the person. Vote for their character, the competence, their executive leadership, what they have done and what they've accomplished. Because you need people who represent you in parliament, not be slaves to a government or a regime and say, yes sir. Otherwise, for 5 years, you'll be outside with no power while somebody has 2/3 and they do anything they want. You saw the last regime. They had a health minister who was literally responsible for human lives being lost. And everybody raised their hands and said, he is not vote of confidence, that he is not supposed to fail this vote of confidence. Now you want that to happen again? Have independent voices. Give us an opportunity. We have no masters but the people. We say we are a Desha Sevaka party, which is not a Desha Palaka party. We're here to serve the people. We want to be accountable. And how will we be accountable compared to the rest? We will declare our assets publicly if we're elected immediately, and then every year we'll declare it publicly. So you would know, are we benefiting from doing anything questionable? You will see. And at the same time, we would, as a party, we would declare our finances, you'll see that. And then we have the right to recall in our party's constitution. If we violate your confidence, you can, none of these other parties are going to let you do that. And we have a performance chart that you could see. What are the bills we've bought? How have we bought it? What have we done for our community? How have we served Gampaha? How have we served in Hambantota, Puttalam and Trinco in our other 4 districts? You would know that we want to make a difference and we want to be held accountable, and we're about results. Gampa has been served by every one of the 3 major parties for 76 years. We're poorer than we were. There's more malnutrition in our district than ever before. Entrepreneurs have been devastated, and none of these ministers even visited our communities when they were hurting. We believe Gampa deserves better, and we can do a better job. Check out who we are, what we've done. If you look at Rhuani's work, this is not handout welfare work, sustainable work to transform communities. Go and look at what we've done and give us an opportunity. We're serious about this. We're going to serve. Even if we get into parliament or not, we'll still serve. But with that authority and leadership, we can be part of national policy and government, transforming our districts.
And I think for me, if I have to put it in one word, we care. That's why we're in it.
Thank you, and we wish you the best of luck in the upcoming election.
Contesting from Gampa,
From Gampa.
right? Numbers?
The king coconut or coconut number 2 and
Number 15.
Number 15, okay. So we generally end our roundtable with a quote that I try to find something that I feel is apt. So this is my one. One of the penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. This is by Plato, and that is why we appreciate people like you guys who have sacrificed a lot to actually come into politics, because you get the politicians coming in to make money and you get the politicians coming in to make a difference to the country, and I think you're coming in to do something for the country. So we wish you well, and if there are no other questions from anybody, we can actually wind it up for tonight.
That's a wrap then for day 317. Thank you, both of you, for bringing up your time. I know it's a difficult time where you're busy with your work with this election coming up. Thank you for making time for this. We'll be back on the street on Sunday, day 318. We'll be reminding the public who to vote for, who not to vote for. And what you said earlier, what kind of characteristics, criminals, drug dealers, gold smugglers, look at the character of the person. And don't vote for the party, vote for decent people. We can clean up parliament. I think this is the first time in 76 years maybe that we have an opportunity to do it this time, and some hope. And go out and vote. You have to vote.
You have to vote.
Yeah, and I think also don't vote because of fear. Here is an ideal opportunity to change everything.
Yes.
While we need a strong government, we also need a strong opposition.
Yeah.
That's something.
For democracy.
Go on.
And there's one thing I have to say. The bare minimum is that they're not corrupt people.
Yeah.
But then you want to go above that.
Yeah.
This case, my problem is now become mediocre in the sense of, as long as he's not a drug dealer, then it's fine. Think of it as you're giving your child in marriage. Give somebody that can provide a decent future, can work together, be respectful, and people of competence. Can they deliver? Do they understand the constitution? Do they understand the economy? Can they bring foreign investments? Can they speak for the nation? That's what we need. Bare minimum is a guy who doesn't steal. That's a given. I don't want my guy who's even, working in the house.
Prashan, unfortunately, we have to say that because in the past, we have had party leaders. I mean, this is something that a party leader should understand. But we've had party leaders who's nominated killers. Right? I'll mention Chokamalli. Right? And then once they are nominated, we've had people who elected them. So ideally, we should be telling the party leaders not to appoint such people. Now, you all have appointed awesome people into your team. Unfortunately, other parties in the past haven't done it. This time we are seeing a change. So although what you say makes sense, it is still valid to remind people not to.
Step 1 and step 2.
And actually, in this election, there are a lot of those guys who have not come forward to run.
Yeah, but you don't know whether they'll
come
creep into the
national list,
national
but they have
list.
to win enough seats to put them in.
Yeah.
So,
But I've also
hopefully.
some of these people. So I will not mention names yet, but they will anyway get elected. Some of these people.
Yeah, there are some drug dealers also anyway.
Yeah, I'm dealing with I'm competing with some other. I'm competing with a thug who tried to break down my office yesterday. And I'm really still trying to,
Are you serious?
Yeah, so they're hoping they have a shot, and they're coming in. And so, but I feel even among the lower educated communities, that realization, thanks to the Aragale, has come to play. We don't want these people, especially the way they behaved in Parliament and all those things. I think, hopefully, we're getting close to that reality.
Okay, so I think it's good night, and it's a wrap from us on day 317 from GGY. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks for listening.